a bunch of other people in the group here, Caleb and Linda and Maxine and Stephanie, and Tabitha. So it's nice to see other folks coming in.
Yeah.
I am the director of the program Advance, which provides professional development for staff who work with students with disabilities for Pima County school staff.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
And she is a rock star. Absolutely. Oh.
Thank you.
And we're lucky that she's on our board now. We got her. So
I am privileged to be a part. Thank you for your confidence, Linda.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Thanks.
All right, Miss Bree, what's our participant waiting room looking like?
I got one more person in. We're at a total of 9 in the oh, another person just popped in.
Oh, good.
Let me let them in.
Considering it's the end of the day, that's great.
We're already recording, so we can go ahead and get started whenever we want, and I'll keep an eye on the participants list just in case.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, well, we're excited to virtually welcome everybody to our session this afternoon. Sounds like it's been a long day of learning, but hopefully everybody has gotten a few really great things to walk away with. We want to start just by saying how thankful we are for the opportunity to share some of this information through this platform, and it's just a nice way to be connecting with people during this really interesting time that we're in. So our session is remote learning for students with autism and tips to thrive while at home. So schools, across Arizona are doing different things right now, but at-home learning has been a reality for a lot of families. There's many challenges that come with that, I think, regardless of the student population that you're talking about. But specifically for individuals with disabilities and students with autism and those families, it just presents some different challenges. So we wanted to share some of the things that we've been coaching our families on at our school, and hopes that they're going to be something that any of you guys that are here in the audience can take away and use for yourself. So with that being said, we'll start with some introductions. So my name is Hattie Lynham, and I'm the assistant director at the Tucson campus. So our school is called Autism Academy for Education and Development. Our Tucson campus opened last year, so we are in year 2. We're very excited to be down here. And that's my email right now, or right there. So if you guys have any questions after the presentation, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to connect with any of you.
Hi, and I'm Miss Breanne Jojola Smith. I've been working in special education for about 9 years now, 6 of which have been with Autism Academy. I started out as a special education teacher, and I worked my way up to get my BCBA. So I am excited to be here with you guys today.
So the mission of our school is to assist every student with autism to be equipped and able to achieve academic, social, and behavioral excellence in an environment centered on strong character values. So we definitely are in the business of educating the whole child. As I mentioned, our Tucson campus has been here for 2 years, but the organization overall, we're in year 8. So in addition to our Tucson campus, we also have 3 campuses in the Valley. And so we are really excited to be supporting families and students across the state. Oh, I'm going to go back to our objective really quick. So today during this session, we're looking to provide strategies for families to apply in the home to support a student's academic, behavioral, and social success while participating in online learning programs. Our school serves a very wide range of individuals, and so we're hoping that there's something that everybody can take and apply. We will have some time at the end for questions, so as we're going through, if you have any specific questions that come up, please feel free to jot those down, and then you can put them in the chat as well, but we probably just won't answer them until the end. But definitely be thinking about if there's, any information that you'd like, please ask. So we're going to kind of run this where we're going to talk about a student, and then we'll talk about potential solutions that may help. So this is Alice, and what her family has found is that she tries to run from her computer or tablet every time she's prompted to get on for class. Alice looks like she's a little bit on the younger side, but this is something that we've experienced with all ages of our students. A potential solution for this would be a visual schedule that shows both the home and school schedule. So something that's been unique for a lot of families during this time is that, they maybe have a home visual schedule and there was maybe a school visual schedule, but when this abrupt change happened, there wasn't an intentional creation of something that could be used across both settings, but in the home. So we're going to share a little bit more about what visual schedules can look like depending on the needs and the age of the student.
So something we love to go over is just kind of the why of creating that visual schedule. We find that obviously it reduces confusion, especially those kiddos who all of a sudden, I go home usually and that's my safe space. That's where I relax. That's where I get out my tablet for fun things. And now I have to log in. But having that schedule transfer into the home really reduced that confusion and to see exactly what was going to go on and when that environment might return to the environment they were used to. It also eliminated power struggles that came from that abrupt change. It also helps to eliminate stress and anxiety. I was just talking to a group of parents, and I know that a huge thing for me, my visual schedule is my calendar. And one day, especially because we're all using the same, systems, my team's calendar completely crashed and everything was erased. I was so anxious and so stressed throughout the day. I thought I was going to miss something. I was like, my boss is going to get me in trouble. Like I'm just lost without it. So that's kind of what those kids feel like when they don't have that stuff at their fingertips. It's a wonderful, this like a simple first then board. It's a wonderful visual for that kind of system all throughout the length of the day. Sorry, I'm going to be admitting people while talking, so sorry if I stop for a second. And then there are also times where you would teach changes in the schedule too, so that a child knew when a change was coming up. If you built that skill into a schedule that you're already using, then some of those things that did have to change and did have to change very quickly back in the spring might be a little bit alleviated, and hopefully when they return, you could also introduce that change card again. So those are wonderful pieces as well. As you start to teach this to the child, you can start to scale back, and it really fosters that independence. And everyone utilizes these every day. As I said, I have mine on my my cell phone and my team's calendar, but I have a partner that I work with at Autism Academy, and she can't do calendars like that. She has to write it out. It has to be a written visual schedule. So even us, we use those. So think about what that would look like for your student. And then I just wanted to know, you guys can go ahead and unmute. What are some that you guys use typically either for yourself or for your child during this time? Don't be shy, guys.
Well, I know just for myself, I have written schedules all over, and I like giant Post-it notes for that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll take those Post-it notes and put them in a sequence that keeps me in order.
And I love hearing all of the different systems, because I have a teacher that I work with who does the Post-it notes too, and I cannot, because I lose them all the time. So they don't keep me organized, but that's just the beauty of visual schedules being so versatile, and not one system is going to work for everyone, but there are definitely ones that you can use and you can try, and there's just so many out there. They're very beneficial.
What I love so much about Post-it notes is they're movable. So you can say,
Mhm.
oh, now we're doing this next. So
Yeah, definitely. All righty. When building a visual schedule, a lot of times parents will tell me, like, I don't even know where to start. So what I like to do is I just think about a time of day that there's already kind of a natural schedule going on. So maybe in the morning, you always wake up, take a shower, eat your breakfast, go to school. You already know that that's a natural occurring schedule. But there also might be times where you would like there to be a little bit more of a routine. So maybe bath time doesn't go very well. So I'm going to break it down into a series of steps, and then I'm going to put it into visual mode for the child. So then you can put pictures to it. Obviously, that's optional if the kiddo is young. Like we said, Alice in our example is a little younger, so I would definitely put pictures in for her. But and a lot of those readers are going to need those pictures. And then you could always match pictures with text as they get older or as they build on that reading skill. And then eventually you can scale back to just that written text and then start generalizing it to things like a Post-it note system or quick notes on a whiteboard and things like that.
We actually have, our school is K through high school. So we recently had a high school parent share that when her student was younger, they used a lot of the visual or the picture visual schedules. And now he uses, the calendar on his phone beautifully, and that has now served as his visual schedule. So it's interesting to see how over time, what works with the student, that'll change with age and need.
So here's an example of one that I put together for a family. They had trouble with their student's morning routine just because she wasn't going to school physically anymore. So there was a lot of, well, I'm just going to sleep in and all of that. So they had me put together this visual schedule, and then there's a built-in token board component. As you can see, that I sat down with the parent. They told me all of the things that the child, that they wanted the child to be doing in the morning and about what time, for how long, and we just made it very visually appealing to them. What we did with this particular one is we laminated it so that they could color in the stars when they were finished. And then at the end, we gave them the text file if they ever needed to change it. But for this particular kiddo, they needed 4 stars to get to whatever reinforcer they were working for.
And I think one thing, like thinking back to our example of Alice, and every time she's prompted to get online, kind of avoiding it by stepping away, or part of the component of this that would be nice is knowing for her what to expect that's coming next. And then, as Bree mentioned, I love that the reinforcers tied into this one, and we'll talk a little bit more about reinforcers later on.
And then we modified that one just a little bit for our older kiddos. Sorry, I'm moving around the participant box. So this is just so funny. So we modified it with pictures that were a little bit older because the other ones were a little young. And then we added those check marks for complete. And then, as we said, you could modify it even further. So on the right there, we turned those into points, or you could turn them into dollar amounts, and they can cash in that money for reinforcers. Down here, it was iPad computer time, some time in the swimming pool, and then snacks were just a little bit cheaper, just because they may want them more often. And that would give them access to a reinforcer a little bit more quickly if they can't wait that full 15 points, 20 points, and all of that.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next student situation. So this is John. And it seems like, he's been getting on, but his teacher is reporting that he hasn't been getting any work done. So you start to kind of notice that he seems to be up and walking around a lot during instruction. And so there's many reasons that this may happen, but what we found, especially early on when we made this transition, is that students didn't necessarily have everything that they needed around them in order to be able to complete whatever the activity was that the teacher was prompting them to do. And so, if that's the case, and they get up to go get, let's say, a notebook, and they go to the normal spot where the notebook is and it's not there, and then they're wandering around, and it can just create a lot of barrier for the student to be able to really complete whatever academic task that's being requested. So one thing that's worked well for a lot of our families is just having a space in the house, wherever it is. It can be in the living room, but that really has everything that the student might need during those online school sessions.
Yeah, so part of this goes into just the fact that we find that it's a lot easier for a student to work when they have one station that's only meant for that. So some students were working on a bed. The bed's comfy, the bed's my comfort space, that's where I want to lay down and just rest and relax. Or if they're in their bedroom and they have all these fun toys or the TV, then it just really took away from trying to wrap their head around this is work time. A lot of therapists that I've worked with in the past say that the thing that helped them the most is their parents put one table with just 2 chairs and all of the necessary materials they needed, and the student always knew, this is where I go to work. Even if I'm not physically in school, this is the section that I go to work. And then, yes, what also helps is that in that area, there's always going to be something to write with, like a paper, pen, pencil. And then if you have those crafting activities, there's always going to be crayon, scissors, glue. And then for kiddos who need a little bit more like fidgets and all of that, there's also those sensory items, or they had their compression vests hanging over their chair. Whatever really they needed at their fingertips. And then a comfortable chair. This is something that in our schools, we have our typical work chairs. However, there are so many options for alternative seating. So a chair that really helped them focus, whether it was a wiggle chair or just a wiggle pad on their normal seat. I also helped a lot of parents during this time find ways to eliminate distractions. So some students would work at the kitchen table, but the kitchen table had a direct view of maybe outside where a younger sibling would be playing, or a direct view of the television. So if there's a space where you don't see those things, awesome. If not, you could create dividers or little natural barriers so that they can stay within that space in their minds. That really helps me when I'm working. And then, sorry, moving stuff. Really making sure that there was a folder for, work that might need to be completed, or a bin or whatever you would use, but a folder of work that is to be completed, and a area where you put it when it's finished. That just helps visually seeing, all right, this is what I need to do. And then when I'm done with that, I can leave this space, and only when this bin is empty. And then positive affirmation. Sorry, there was something blocking. But positive affirmation always helps in these situations. Again, we'll talk about that more, but positive reinforcement is always going to be your go-to when you're really trying to get these kiddos working in a new environment with new stipulations.
Mm-hmm. And I know for some of our families, it depends on the student, but reinforcers are also things that they have kept in the workstation as needed to.
Although sometimes they can be a distraction, so just play it by ear with your student.
Yeah, depends on the kiddo.
These are some examples of things that could be helpful. They're things that we use at school a lot. So these black bins up at the top there, that what could be the work to do and then the work completed. So you could tell your student, you may leave this area and go do this when the top bin is clear. There are also the colorful rainbow bins there, or the 3-stack pull-out bins. These we use, and they're very helpful because you could put like materials that you'll need for reading, writing, and math, or you can set it up so the top drawer has all of the different like pens, pencils, crayons, highlighters, anything you want to write with. Second drawer has all kinds of paper, lined paper, notebooks, sticky notes, construction paper, and then the bottom might have your fidgets, or the bottom could have the tools that you need, like a stapler or scissors. So however you want to organize it, but making sure that they're all pretty separated and labeled, and that is a wonderful tool. For me, at that bottom drawer, I usually will put a pencil box. So there's a clear pencil box down at the bottom right. That's where I would put the fidgets, just because they're a little bit harder to get to. And then obviously just that routine little cup where you can put real quick, one pencil, one pen, and a sharpener. So they're not tempted to touch too many things, but they also don't have to rifle through any drawers if they need something quick and easy.
Awesome. So we have a quick little video about workstations that we're going to go over.
Hi everyone, this is Taylor Jacobs from the Autism Academy. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Implementation for the district, as well as one of the instructional coaches. Welcome to the 2020-2021 school year. We are so excited to see you back with us and see all of the new faces that have joined us this school year. Although the school year might look a little bit different, I am here to help you set up a structured and predictable work environment in your home to help make the home from school transition as smooth as possible. The first thing to think about when setting up a structured space is having a clear distraction-free area in your home to set up. What I have set up here is a clear table or desk that your student will come to every time that it's time for work. Additionally, behind me is a pretty blank wall, so it's free of TV, books, toys, and it's really ready for our kids so there aren't as many distractions. Additionally, what you're going to want is a basket full of materials that your students might need as they're doing their work from home. So the first thing, and the most important, especially since we're doing online school, is having some piece of technology. So whether that be a desktop computer, laptop, tablet, whatever it is and whatever works for you, that will be perfect. Just make sure that that's in the basket. Secondly, having a visual schedule for your student of what they're supposed to be doing throughout the day is going to be really helpful. Working with your student's teacher on creating the visual schedule is going to be really beneficial and help them transition back into the school day once we're back on campus. A couple other things to make sure to have in your basket are either a whiteboard or some paper, as well as some pens, pencils, erasers, to really help our students when they're doing math or writing, things that they might need to do outside of the computer on some scratch paper. Another thing that's really important is a timer. So whether that be on your phone, kitchen timer, setting time for how long they have to work is going to be important so that they can visualize how long they have to be online. The last thing that's super important is having some reinforcers. This work online can get really tough and be a really long time, so having some reinforcement that they enjoy and will really help break up that work time is going to be essential. All of these things will really help set our students up for success when they're transitioning back into the school day, and we are really excited to have your kids back with us on campus. Until then, good luck, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you later.
All right. I think that Taylor made a really good point in that video, in that that transition, some individuals that are in our audience maybe have already gone through it with our students, where they've gone back into a school building. Some of you might not quite be there yet, just depending. But having a setup a workstation setup can be really helpful in making that transition back to school a little bit easier, and just having some familiarity and some expectations in place. So our next student is Laura. And in general, things have been going really well for Laura with this online learning, but she tends to get upset every time her virtual math class starts. So she'll log on and she either behaves poorly or refuses to join or participate. What this would look like is that, all the other subjects are going pretty well, but there just seems to be one that maybe isn't going as smoothly for a student. And so what it would appear to be is a non-preferred task. And so this is where we're going to dive in a little bit more to token boards and point systems to incentivize something that a student doesn't want to do. This is something that we regularly use at our school. It varies depending on the age of the student and what their needs are. And that's something that Bree will talk a little bit more about, but it's something that we have a lot of success with in helping our students really get beyond that initial dislike of something and really into the objective of their math session or their reading session.
So we have a few examples here. So as Hattie was saying, sometimes just a simple token board is really all you need to really drive home that work. Obviously, like we said, setting up a wonderful workstation would really help. But for this kiddo, they're really just having trouble with one subject. So for this situation, that's where I would bust out the token board and try to find things that are incredibly reinforcing. As I said earlier, that visual schedule that I had made for that student had a built-in token board, so we did go over like earning some tokens towards a reinforcer. However, with these ones, this one is very specific to just that subject. You don't only get a star for doing the work, but or for completing that time frame and sitting through the class. But for this one, you could target a very specific behavior that they're exhibiting during that time. So are they, whining and crying a little bit? Are they just refusing? A lot of times people will use token boards just for work completion, but what's wonderful about them is you really could target just one specific behavior. For one student in particular, I noticed a lot he would say, "I gotta be a good boy." And I'm like, yeah, you have to be a good boy, but also what does that mean? So the token board on the far right told them very specifically, what do I have to do during this time frame for me to be considered being a good boy? So for this one, I have to have my hands on the table. I'm not going to act out with any sort of aggression. I need to be actually doing my work, yes, and completing it. But I also need to be having my feet on the floor. This particular kid was in person, so he also had to raise his hand, but with Teams, you could also raise your hand with the little feature. Some of the kids, we did, if you were able to mute and unmute, were you able to contribute just one thing to the discussion? Things like that. So there are a couple of very general, the first and second token boards there are very general, but that second one could really be tailored to specifically your student and what kind of things you're seeing at that certain time that they're just working with a non-preferred task. For an older student, we also had the day broken down for them. So for this one, they would, their morning meeting or like a morning check-in. Did I log in? Yes or no? Did I come in with my mic muted and my camera on? Yes or no? Did I verbally participate in the lesson? Did I turn in all relevant work? And for everything that it was a yes, they could get some money and bank it. Now, this one I like specifically because if class 2 is math and we're having a little bit of trouble with it, there also could be this discussion of, no, I didn't log on, but I logged on to a lot of other things. I'm earning my money, and you could really foster that communication with that student. So maybe they didn't log in virtually, but they did turn in all relevant work. So they still could earn a little bit of money for their math time. It's okay if we didn't see you face to face. Or I logged in, but I really am not comfortable talking online. I know that was a huge adjustment for me, so I definitely would have earned a no. But that's fine. Just log on, turn your camera on, mute your mic, and just sit there. You've already earned 15 cents. That's awesome. And then you did your work. Great. There was only one aspect that you didn't do, and it doesn't hurt you in the long run. It's okay. So this one I really liked for that particular kiddo and that situation that we were dealing with.
All right. So we have another little video here related to this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play.
Today, we're going to talk about the behavioral trap. Right now, some of our kiddos have been online for a few weeks, and it's getting a little challenging to keep them on task in the home environment. You might start seeing some tantrums and avoidance behaviors. So we're going to talk about how to manage that, as well as what the behavioral trap looks like and how to avoid that at all costs. So the behavioral trap is when a student is getting reinforced for problem behavior, while at the same time an adult is getting reinforced for that problem behavior going away. An example would be if your student starts throwing a tantrum and maybe yelling and screaming at home when they don't want to do a task, and we allow them a break because it seems like they're getting frustrated. While that might seem like a great idea in the moment, ultimately that child is learning to start yelling and screaming in order to get out of a task, and then ultimately you are going to continue offering breaks because you don't have to listen to them scream. So while we do understand that you're at home, that structure is going to look a little bit differently. You're going to want to offer breaks, but for the appropriate way. For example, if your student starts engaging in those problem behaviors, such as yelling, screaming, maybe even just whining and complaining, you can offer that model or prompt of, hey, I need a break. Once they repeat it back to you, that is when you are allowed to offer that break. Again, schedules are going to be so important during this time at home to keep that routine and keep those leisure activities. Get outside, do some leisure time. It shouldn't be all work all day, but also we want to make sure we reinforce with that leisure time for appropriate behavior, not inappropriate.
I love the point that she makes here too. A lot of times when I was talking to parents, they would say, it's a lot of online time, it's a lot of screen time. It's really hard to keep my kiddo sitting here, especially because you're also working or trying to keep up with the household. And those are things you could normally do while your student was away at school. Something that's just so important to know is that, especially for us at Autism Academy, we know what you're going through, and we do not expect you to keep your student at the computer all day long. We've been through it. We're there for you, and it's okay to allow them to take breaks. It's okay if they don't attend a session or two. We're going to understand. And as long as you are reinforcing when they are doing well and online and logging in, and then reinforcing when they've appropriately asked for a break or time off, or I really just don't like to do math online, mom, or whatever that is, then that's perfectly fine. I feel like in special education, you're not going to find any teachers who are just like, well, they just need to do their work, so I just wouldn't worry about stuff like that. I love that point that she made.
Thank you, Bree. So let's take a look at our next student. This is Tom, and Tom is eagerly attending his online learning sessions. When it comes to completing homework, though, he is getting 0. So he's there during the day, but that work completion is just not happening. And this could happen at all ranges, or all ages rather. So this is something that even though we have it geared towards an older student here, it definitely applies to our younger kiddos as well. So one thing that can be helpful is providing a higher level of support with that work completion. So having a conversation with the student about identifying like, okay, these are the things that we have to complete, and then offering those choices for which one the student wants to complete first. The other thing that I would recommend, that we would recommend pairing with that, is using timers to help him conceptualize when he is working on assignments and when he can have breaks. We know that not all assignments take the same amount of time, and not all kids take the same amount of time on those assignments. And so having timers be paired with choices can be really powerful in letting students understand that they can have manageable chunks of work time and then get reinforced with the break and come back. So very related to what we just talked about, but I'm gonna go in to let Bree do a little bit more explanation here.
So like I was saying previously, it's really important to know that some of our students have those preferred activities. So I am not a math person at all, but I really love reading. My husband is different. He is a math whiz and hates reading. So those are things that I can understand. And I would, if I have to do work right now, if you give me a choice, work will get done, but it's going to be the one that I want to do, and that's okay, as long as we're focused on a certain subject. And then a lot of times you can just bank that other subject for later. So we have to do math and reading today. Do you want to do math right now, or do you want to do reading? As long as they know, all right, we can do math, it's your preferred, but we're going to bank the reading and that'll come up again later. So really setting that up from the beginning is important. For younger or maybe nonverbal students, it could also be just that choice on a board. These are the 3 things we have to do today: reading, writing, and math. Which one do you want to complete? Oh, you really like writing. I'll take that off the board. Let's do some writing. And then when it's the next natural activity time, you present that board again. Well, we already did our math, or we already did our writing. So which of these other 2 do we want to do? Also, if you really do need to get to the math and they keep not choosing it, you could also present them with 1, 2, or 3 worksheets and have them choose. Maybe one has 10 problems on it, maybe one has 3 or 4, maybe one has 5, and they get to choose whichever one they want right now. And either way, you're getting them to sit down and practice math a little bit, but because they saw one with only 4 problems versus that big one with 10, they're gonna naturally want to choose that one. You know, you kind of tricked them into it, which is awesome. And then reinforce heavily for making that choice, and reinforce heavily for making the choice to do math, which is not really preferred. And then turn that right on in. And then for writing, what I really love to do with my students is a lot of times you can gauge what you need from just a couple of simple sentences. So if you would like, you can write using whichever writing utensil you want. You can write 1 sentence, and then I'll write another sentence, and we'll just volley back and forth. So you give them that choice. Oh, do you want to write the 3rd sentence, or do you want me to do it? Okay, I'll do it, but you got to write the next one. So just really getting into that habit of framing it into the choices that they're making, and offering to help them in any way really helps them. And they really think like, I totally got out of my work, but really they did it, and you know that they didn't, and it's fine. You helped them and you supported them through it. And then we talked about timers as a tool. These are some things that we use the 3rd one a lot in our school, but I know that those can be pricey. So parents were always like, well, what do I do? What do I get? I found other timers on Amazon that were really cute. Those little hourglass timers that we love, super cheap. Simple cell phone could work as well. All of our cell phones have timers on it. If they can handle having it there without it being a distraction, why not? Also, since they're on computer time, if you just Google timer, Google has those little apps. I think they call them widgets. I can't really remember, but they have those little apps there that can count down for them. And then most kitchens have a kitchen timer somewhere as well. You could get as fancy as you want, or you can get real simple. But these are a couple of ones that I use in particular.
There's also the dollar stores have wonderful options for timers. They have ones that you can set, like the little electronic ones. They also have some stand timers. And then if you have a student who's working on telling time on an analog clock, you can also get, you know, just a little like old school black and white one, and you can use Expo marker to, like, if they're working for 15 minutes, you could color in that 15 minutes so that they could watch the hand go along. So timers aren't necessarily something that you have to go out and purchase. A lot of times you can just use whatever's in your home, as Bree mentioned.
Yeah, and for these, if you cannot give your student that choice of various worksheets, or you've already given them a choice of like math and writing, but they really just don't want to do reading, you know, sometimes seeing that I'm going to have to do this for 20 to 30 minutes, this is hard, you can break them up into small chunks. You only have to read for 2 or 3 minutes, and the timer went off. And then later after lunch, they're going to read again for 5 minutes, and then the timer goes off and they have that break, and then they can do it again for another 5 or 6 minutes in the evening. And that, you know, they've really put in that time. They did 20, 30 minutes of reading, and that's fine, but it was in tiny increments throughout the day. And that feels like a really good compromise.
All right. So we are at our question slide, and this is an opportunity for you guys, if you do have any questions or experiencing anything, you know, with your students at home right now, for you to ask us. You can type into the chat, or you can ask verbally. We're fine with either. I'm going to pull up the chat here.
Trying to scroll through, see if we missed any. I didn't have any questions in the chat previously, but if you guys have any questions now, go ahead and do that, or just unmute, whichever you prefer.
I have a question.
All right, Sarah, go ahead.
I don't really know when to stop battling my 6-year-old. Basically, when he's had enough and he doesn't want to do his assignments, when should I call it and let him have that break?
So I think, like the video on the behavior trap said, it's okay to have them have those breaks, as long as they have appropriately asked, and then you reinforce it, then that really is fine. And just communicate that with your teachers. Like I said, a lot of teachers, especially right now, they are 100% understanding that this is a difficult time. And if all of us could just get our capes on and just go on over to you and help you, we would 100% all day long. But we don't want you to feel that burden and that stress. If you could get them to do, you know, if they have to do 5 things through the day and you can get them to do 2 or 3, that's okay. It's okay, as long as you're constantly communicating with your teachers and just letting them know, like, you know, we're putting in the work, but he needs breaks. And he communicated with me, I need a break. So I gave it to him, and I would set that timer, or show them on the schedule, like, okay, we have break built in this time. It really depends on, can he follow a visual schedule and see there's a built-in break and work towards that? Or is it, when he needs it in that moment? If he's able to work through a visual schedule, then I would definitely just build those in, you know, 1 task for this many minutes and there's a break. Another task, couple of minutes, get a break. But if that's too much, and when he needs it now, definitely just prompt him to ask however he can, and then give it to him. That's 100% fine. Communication is a huge part of education as well.
Thank you, Sarah, for your question.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Says, I have a teenager finding his way around technology boundaries and bringing up games and YouTube on the side during classes. Yep, and they have to manage 3 other kids. Tried tech barriers. I don't know a lot about tech barriers. That's the hard part. I'm not a tech savvy person. I don't know, Hattie, do you know any tech barriers that might work?
Well, I've had experience using Go Guardian in the past, but I do know, like, if this is what a kid is, you know, doing, it's definitely, tech barriers tend to not work super great because they're usually able to get around them, which sounds like it's been Stephanie's experience. One of the things that I think could come into play here are those.
She said, yeah, he gets around them.
Yeah, yep. We've seen that, definitely. I think one of the things that I would look at doing is partnering with the teacher and using some sort of point system, because we certainly have had students that are logged on, but they're not participating in those sessions. And so it comes back to, you know, mom and dad think that they're on doing their work and the teacher sees that they're there, but they're not getting any of that work done. And so part of what's going to be really important in that is that parent and school relationship. And so working together to figure it out. One of the things that we have right now, like we have a student who was experiencing something similar. And basically at the end of the day, the teacher sends a report that says, you know, the student was present, they participated, and then any additional notes. And so at home, the parents are able to reinforce that with a point sheet similar to like what Bree showed earlier. And so that's been helpful in kind of shaping that desired behavior. Bree, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Something else some of the older kiddos will do for us is, so if mom is with 3 other kiddos, those kids are able to handle it just a little bit differently, a little bit better. They could always be taking a break while the other kiddo is on. So you just kind of like flip-flop sometimes and just communicate that with the teacher that they're not going to be on at this time, but I will have your recorded lesson that I will allow him to view when I can have some eyes on him. And then are they even able to get around guided access? I'm curious. Like on the iPad, because I have never had a child be able to break that, but definitely I've had children who are totally capable of breaking the computer ones. But so what I have done is the teacher will record their lesson and then I will bring it up. Either if they totally can get around all barriers, then they at a different time will be watching the videos, and they'll do more like paper pencil stuff during the day when I can't keep my eyes on you. And then they would work towards those things that they like the technology and the YouTube. The other thing to note is if it's not getting in the way of their learning, some kiddos can handle like something being on in the background while working. I know teachers are like, oh, we need to stay off of it. But in my opinion, it's not so dissimilar from when you're working at home and watching TV. So it really depends on if they could handle something like that. If they have a little video going on the background or some music and they can do it, then is it something that, like, are we picking our battle maybe? So that one's hard. That one's like a lot of different layers to it.
Yeah, and I also like think, you know, for technology, it's like those expectations are things that we have to teach. And so, and they're also things that our kiddos have to practice. And I know like even as an adult, right, like I could have an a task that I need to complete, and then suddenly I find myself on the phone in Google land, not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think on some level, this is something that we all struggle with in different parts of our lives. And so just, you know, I know it's probably definitely frustrating because it's like he's supposed to be online, he knows he's supposed to be online, and he's not meeting that expectation. But just remembering that it is like using technology appropriately is a skill that has to be taught, and anything that has to be taught is going to take time, which is why I also think like using some sort of point sheet or reinforcing system that's looking at, you know, the amount of engagement time in those online sessions would be helpful here, because you're going to meet him where he is and looking at what duration is he like able to really focus for that, and then build that duration time up over time.
I love the she said that's very interesting, choosing battles, and that's the hard thing too. Sometimes I feel like we're just like, well, this is what you're supposed to be doing, but making that realization that there are a lot of things that as an adult I should be doing and I don't sometimes, and just really having that compassion and giving them that grace that, you know, it's hard to be on the computer and not scroll. It's hard for me to be answering emails on my cell phone and not want to click on like Instagram or something, you know, or like I said, if I'm having TV in the background, it has to be something that I've watched a million times, or else it's been 45 minutes and I've done nothing. So yeah, I like that. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions? We are actually like really close to being on time for the full hour. Bree and I were wondering how it was going to go with our questions, and we're really grateful for those of you that did pose the things, you know, that were kind of in the back of your mind. Sessions like this are, I think, always the most beneficial when they're interactive, and just being in a virtual space, it's a little different. So we definitely appreciate you guys utilizing the chat and then the ability to verbally ask. So as we shared, I'm going to go back actually really quickly to our beginning slides so that you guys can get our information if you would like to. Sorry, it wouldn't let me exit out, so go all the way back. So both of our emails are there. Feel free to grab a screenshot, jot them down. And as we both, you know, shared, we'd be happy to answer any additional questions that come up for you guys. I feel like right now, every parent who has a student who's learning from home is a superhero. So before we get off, you know, just want to reassure you all that you're doing a great job. This is completely new for everybody, and it's very challenging. So just kudos to all of you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for attending today. We hope that it was very helpful.
Thanks, guys.
Stop. Miss Diane, once we have the recording, where would you like that to go?